is Flow Hub, and we have quite a lot for you as a student. I happen to be a lecturer of French language here in Nigeria, and I've had the privilege of teaching quite a lot of students. In this channel, we are launching a particular section for student beginners with French. So if you are a beginner in French, come on. This is your best shot to learn French and get the basics. Whether you are praying for TCF, you're preparing for DEF, this will get the foundation of French grammatical structures in this channel. So this morning, or this day, or this afternoon, or this evening, whatever time of the day you stumble on this video, I want to inform you that I have something very interesting for you. And we're looking at two important things. They work hand in hand. They are called articles, nouns. Articles and nouns. Now, what are articles? We call them article et le nom. So it's important to underline what these things actually mean before proceeding to talk about how they are used. So I'm going to be taking you through a particular textbook, grammar progressive to be precise. I'll be explaining that to you so that you can progress as the knowledge progresses. So right about now, what we are going to be doing, I'll be sharing my screen now and allow you see the things I've been talking about. Okay, so here we have it. We have nouns in French. You have nouns in French. Now, these nouns in French we have, now we're dealing with here. How is nouns in French different from nouns in English or every other language you know? Let's begin. We say en français, le nom est toujours masculin ou bien féminin, singulier ou pluriel. Il est en général précédé d'un article défini ou article indéfini. Now, these nouns in French are generally masculine or feminine, and it's either preceded, is usually preceded by an article, the definite or the indefinite. Take, for example, what we have here. Look at this word. We have la Suède, that's Sweden. We have la Norvège, that's Norwegian. We have des pays voisins. So we have la Suède et la Norvège sont des pays voisins. So in this particular sentence, you are going to find that we have three nouns in the sentence. Why do I say three nouns? That is because you have number one, this definite article la for la Suède. You have la again for Norvège. You have des. This is indefinite article. We'll come to all that for countries, pays, and is in the plural form. Now, having established the fact that in French, nouns are either in the definite or indefinite article, or they're either masculine or feminine, what do we mean by masculine nouns and feminine nouns? It's important we underline that for the purpose of this class. What do we mean by masculine and feminine nouns? What is it all about? Now, let's look at it together. We have masculin et féminin, des noms de personnes, names of people. Now look at this. You will find that in this particular screen in front of you, we have this particular section, un étudiant anglais parle avec une étudiante anglaise. Now in this second section, you find this word étudiant, that's a noun, student. You have étudiante, feminine. You have le garçon, here, masculin, you have la fille. So, le garçon est blond et la fille est brune. So, from what you see so far, nouns are either masculine or feminine. And the articles are either going to be what we call definite article or indefinite article. We'll talk about these articles very briefly, but just know we have definite articles, indefinite articles, we have the partitive articles. We call them generally determinants in French. Now, let's proceed. Now, you're going to discover that pour les noms, les gens, des noms correspondent au sexe. Now, when I look at un étudiant, une étudiante, I use un for masculine noun, I use une for feminine noun, telling you that the gender of the word must correspond with the article you are using to precede the word. So take, for example, we have this, un étudiant, you have une étudiante, feminine. So that is the difference. Now, you also find that as you look at these examples in front of you on your screen right now, that for this particular case, to form the feminine, all we did was to add an extra E to the masculine word. noun already. We have E here for étudiant. We have E here for blonde. You have E here for ami. So, étudiante, let me take it again. You have E for étudiante. You have E for ami. You have un étudiant blonde, a blonde male student. You have un étudiante blonde, un étudiante blonde. This is it there. A blonde female student. So you see the gender is very, very precise. You cannot miss it when somebody writes. You know who is speaking, a male or a female. Now, when words ends in consonant generally, like we have for étudiant, we add the E. Adding the extra E makes it feminine generally in French. You want to take note of that as a beginner when you are reading or you are writing. Now, the next thing to take note of is the rules that are captured below for you. Now, look at this rule in front of you. It said, pour former le féminin, on ajoute E. We add E. This is what I'm trying to talk about here. We add E to the masculine. Now, there are times also when you already have E at the end of the word for the masculine form of the noun. The question is, qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire à ce moment? Qu'est-ce que cela veut dire pour nous? Comment mettre ce nom au féminin? How do you put such kind of nouns in the feminine? The answer is very simple. Look at it here. We say quand le masculin. This is it. Let me circle it very well so that you can see it on your screen. Quand le masculin se termine par E, on change seulement l'article. Now, there are times when the masculine form of the noun ends in an E. All you do is that you change the article from masculine to feminine. An example is in front of you here. We'll call it concierge. So you have concierge as an example. Now, with concierge, you will find that this is concierge. Un concierge. All I did, all the writer did was change this particular to become un, this un you see here. So that is what happens when the noun ends in a feminine with an E, yeah, in French. Now, beyond that, you are going to also find that there are other rules for getting what we call the feminine form of a noun. So what we're dealing with right now, so far, is that nouns appear in masculine or feminine form. Now, the first way to turn a masculine noun to become a feminine one is to add an extra E. Now, if the noun ends in an E, you don't add an extra E to it. However, for that rule to stand most of the time is not in isolation. So what we do in French is simple. There are times you don't add just an extra E. You have to also work on the ending of the particular noun you're dealing with. Now let's have this, as you can see it on your screen now. Let's have this together. Look at this section. It says parfois, this section. Parfois, toute la terminaison du mot change. Take, for example, you have un musicien, a musician, ends in en. You have une musicienne. The en will double the n and before adding the e. Now, so we double the consonant for those kind of words. Now, the next one is champion. Un champion breton, une championne bretonne. So you see, you also double the N before you add the E. Now, there are times it ends in EUR. For example, you have un sévère rêveur. Sévère, this is it here, masculine, become EUXE, become une serveuse. Une serveuse rêveuse. Une serveuse rêveuse. Now, you have encore un acteur. Un acteur, here, séducteur. You have une actrice. So when it ends in T-E-U-R, it now become what? Trice. However, is it every word in French that ends like that becomes that? The answer is no, of course. So you are going to find some changes here and there. Examples of such I will call chanteur, chanteuse. Chanteur become what? Chanteuse, instead of chantrice. Monteur become what? Monteuse, instead of montrice. Conteur become what? Conteuse instead of countries. So these are some of the few rules of changing masculine nouns to become feminine in French. Now, beyond these rules, which are number one, add an E to the masculine word, leave it the same, just change the article if it ends in an E, double the consonants for N, what that for nouns that ends in en or on. Then for one that ends in eur, you make it euse. Then for teur become trice. Apart from the exceptions we have looked at so far, you are going to find that there exists a lot of nouns in French that don't require you changing the masculine to the feminine because you already have a feminine version. We call them in French cas particulier. Now, what are these cas particulier? Take for example, we have un garçon, une fille become what? Une fille. This is it. You have un homme, a man, un mari, a husband, une femme, a woman or a wife. You have un monsieur becomes une dame. You have un copain become une copine. You have un roi becomes une reine. You have un prince become une princesse. Therefore, madam, mademoiselle, monsieur, titles, we use them without articles. So that aside. So for these examples in this cas particular, you have the masculine way of saying the thing, and you also have the feminine way of saying it. So these are key things you want to take note of. Now, for my students in school, I normally take them through exercises, and we have quite a lot of exercises in this textbook. So all I will do is I will pick just the very first one as we go ahead in this particular interaction so that you can see how it works. Now, look at this example. I will use this number 4 question as an example. This is number 4 question. That's an example of this. Now, we say cocher et compléter au masculin. Now, that means you should indicate and you complete the masculine. That is what you're asking you to do here. So these are basically tests for mastering the masculine. So that's for the textbook. You can get more of it. It's online there. You can also get a hard copy. Well, we are in the DM if you're within Nigeria. Anywhere you can go on Google, on Amazon and get a copy for yourself. Now, but let's look at this. Look at this number 1 example to practice the masculine form. All we are doing here is that we're trying to change from masculine French noun to feminine French noun. We have an example here. Un étudiant chinois become une étudiante chinoise. Now we have un homme seul become une femme seule. Un homme élancé become une femme élancée, double E. Un chanteur grec become une chanteuse grecque. Un garçon sportif become une fille sportive. So we have un joli garçon become une jolie fille. Un chat roux become une chatte rousse. Un mari jaloux become une mari or une femme jalouse. Then you have un sévère rêveur become une séveuse rêveuse. So you can try this kind of exercise on your own, as you can see it on the screen. And then if you go through it and you work the exercise, you can send it as a comment to the comment section of this video, and definitely my team and I are going to attend to it and send you a feedback. So that is basically on nouns, changing nouns from masculine to feminine. Now, beyond changing nouns from masculine to feminine, there's still quite a lot to do when it comes to the issue of nouns in French. And these issues are very important, and we're going to be looking quite at a lot of them so far. So we have mastered, the first thing is that nouns in French are in 2 genders: masculine gender, feminine gender. And this masculine and feminine gender we're talking about generally, they exist. There are ways you can convert masculine as a feminine now. You add E, first of all, we've seen that there. You see that already. You can go back to the video and watch more. You have seen that you leave it the way it is, only change the article if it ends in what we'll call an E. At other times, you have to change the entire structure by doubling the consonant. Other times, you have to change the EU arrow to become EUSE. Then you also change the T arrow, TEU arrow become TRICE, apart from the exceptions. Then we have the cas particulier, when you have becoming femme. Those ones you don't change the masculine to feminine. Rather, you simply just put the feminine as it is in the language. Having said that, the next most important thing you need to know when you are dealing with nouns in French is the fact that beyond masculine and feminine, there exists what we call signposts, signals, pointers, things that can help you identify if the noun is actually masculine or if the noun is feminine. So what are some of these pointers? We're going to be looking at it now. We want to see how do you identify these pointers? So I will be sharing my screen once again, and let's delve into it right now. So as you look through your screen, you've seen quite a lot of things here already. We have number one, things like implacar, we have une à moi. Un problème, you have une solution. So you are going to find out already from this one, masculine and feminine, we have seen the difference. Now, how do you now identify? Pour les objets et les notions, le genre est arbitraire. That is for objects and notions, the gender is arbitrary, meaning we cannot actually decide, okay, this is the gender here and there. However, the endings of a word, phonetically speaking, can help you to a large extent in determining what we call the gender of the word. And we have quite a lot of examples which we want to look at right now. So we're going to start from the very first one, which you can see in front of your screen that ends in AGE. We call it age. Age. When words end in age, like you have in words like this, you have le garage, you have le fromage, you have le ménage. When words end like that in French, they tend to be masculine. But there are exceptions. For example, you have la plage, you have la cage, you have la nage, you have l'image, you have la rage. These are exceptions. Now, I will call mon. The end is in mon, M-E-N-T. When words ends in M-E-N-T in French, they tend to be what we call masculine. Example, le gouvernement, that is the government. We have le monument, the monument, le médicament, medication. So those tend to be masculine over 90% of the time. Now, when words ends in O, for example, le bureau, E-A-U, O, you have le bureau, you have le couteau, you have le carreau, masculine. When we're saying what we call phone or scope, for example, un téléphone. Number two, un interphone. Number three, un microphone. They tend to be masculine. Also, when we're saying what we call ism, of course, you will know this one very well. We have feminism, you have Marxism, all those many isms you are used to already in English. Realism, existentialism. When words ends in ism in French, they tend to be masculine. Example, le réalisme, le socialisme, le féminisme, le marxisme. All of them tends to be masculine in gender. Now, before we proceed to the signposts for feminine in gender, I want you to understand that though these signposts are there, they are not 100% guaranteed. That is why they are called signposts. But trust me, over 80% of the time, they've stood the test of time and they've been proven to be true. Hence, they are documented in such a very valuable textbook recognized across the globe. Now, let's deal with the feminine version of this. We have seen for the masculine. We have seen words that ends in AGE, MENT. We have seen words that ends in phone, scope, isms. Now, when you come to the words that can possibly be feminine, there's quite a lot of them. But let's look at the possible endings. Number one, we have what we call sion, S-I-O-N-T-I-O-N. When words ends in sion, like, for example, la situation, la solution, la réalisation, la décision, la télévision, they tend to be feminine over 90% of the time. When it ends in T, that is T-E as on you, they tend to be what? Feminine. If you don't know what accent is, please go and check writing symbols in French in one of our videos in the YouTube channel. You'll find that there. So we have la société, for example. You have la réalité. You have la bonté. You have la beauté. Now, you see, for all these they are feminine. However, there are always exceptions. We have, for example, le côté, l'été, which is summer. We have le comité, committee. We have le député. We have le pâté. These other ones are masculine. Now, when words end in et, E-T-T-E, for example, la bicyclette, la trompette, la cigarette, they tend to be what? Feminine. Another form is ans, A-N-C-E-E-N-C-E. And you have quite a lot of examples. Example is this, la connaissance. You see these examples here like this. la connaissance, la dépendance, la ressemblance, la référence, la différence, la présence. These are feminine. However, the exception of silence, we have low silence. That's quietness. Low silence, quiet. Now, when we're saying you, for example, U-R-E, example, la couture, la peinture, la nourriture, they also tend to be what? Feminine. But there are also exceptions like mercure or cyanure. We have words that is in old, add, or you'd. Example, la méthode, la salade, la certitude. These words are feminine generally in nature. So as you look at the feminine form, you see quite a lot. We've seen words that ends in sion, T-I-O-N, S-I-O-N, words that ends in T, T as something Q, words that ends in et, words that ends in ons, A-N-C-E, E-N-C-E, words that ends in your, words that ends in old, add, or you'd, that like in method, salad, la certitude. These are feminine. These are feminine. Now, if you are a beginner in French and somebody is teaching you French, some people might like to tell you when words end in E, they tell they are feminine. Is a lie. It's not always like that. These other signposts I've showed you that have been proven and certified by real scholars across the globe. These are the key ones you can depend upon 90% of the time to get the gender of the word right. Having said that, let's understand the fact that in French, not in the Swiss. So there are times you have what we call masculine of words that will end in E. For example, you have un modèle, you have un groupe. This is what I'm trying to talk about here. You have un modèle, this modèle, this un modèle, these are the section. They all ends in E. So that negates the gospel of when it ends in E, it's going to be feminine. It's a lie. Un problème, un système, un programme, un volume, un modèle, un groupe, un domaine, un rôle. These are all masculine. The same thing people tell you when it ends in EUR is feminine, is masculine, is feminine. Okay? Is masculine rather. That's not true. Now we have a lot of them that is in EUR, but they are actually feminine. La couleur, la douleur, these are examples. La couleur, la douleur, l'odeur, la fleur, la saveur, l'erreur, la peur, et la valeur. They are so important, and then you need to master them. They are very important for you, especially as a beginner learning French. Now we have seen the signposts for identifying masculine and feminine nouns. Having touched on that, you might want to make sure of some things. We're dealing with nouns. We'll come to the articles later. Now, we also have names of animals. They usually have a generic form. We have, for example, la mouche, la rousse, la tute, le poisson, le pigeon, le moineau. But you have le chat et la chatte, le coq et la poule, le cheval et la jument. These are some names of animals you might want to take note of. They are very important, and it's important we do that. So I've seen the reality, the fact that nouns in French are either masculine or feminine. As a beginner, you must know that. Two genders. There's no transgender here. There's no bisexual here. No. You're either masculine or feminine. That is the French language for you. Now, we've seen that. We've seen how to identify masculine and feminine noun. Now, most of the nouns we have seen are all in the singular form. But you will agree with me, in every language, you don't only use singular nouns. Now, the question is, how do I now make nouns plurals in French? That's the next thing we want to look at right now. And that's the third thing we are considering. Now, let's take it over. Let's go over it again. Number one, we looked at the fact that there are two genders, masculine and feminine for nouns. And how to make masculine nouns to become feminine. We've seen that. We have also seen at the same time how to identify genders of nouns that you have not even met, you don't even know about. We've seen that as well. Right now, we are coming to the third section of our lesson, and I'm going to be sharing my screen with you again. But before I do that, there is an exercise I normally give my students in class, and I really would love us to go through it together. Now, let's look at the exercise together now. It's very interesting. It helps you to master the gender of nouns. Okay, now look at exercise 2 and 3. Exercise 2, this is it here. Exercise 3. Now, we want to look at these two exercises. If you see you have a lot, like a lot of examples, how do you know that this, we have already seen how to identify them. We have un garçon, here becomes une dame, here becomes un garage, here becomes une télévision, un ordinateur, une tablette, un bateau, un voyage, une aventure, une voiture, une bicyclette, un virage, une assiette, un couteau, une fourchette, un pharmacien, un nuage, un télescope, une chienne, une lion. You have une cage, la cage. Then you have un sourire. You have une image. You have un fleur. You have un couleur. So these are basically a lot of examples. So you see that it is definite or indefinite article. So we'll see more on that later. So like I said earlier, we want to go over now to the next thing, singulars and plurals of nouns. As we come to singular and plurals of nouns, you are going to find that for the examples you have here, take for example, this example in this wonderful box of ours, let's play with it a bit. Yeah. So we have un étudiant espagnol, c'est masculine. Unit, des étudiants espagnols, this is plural. You have espagnol, plural. You have une étudiante espagnol, des étudiantes espagnols also. So these to tell you that you have singular and plural. Now in French, I will always tell my students in class, after knowing how to identify male and female, mention is singular and plural. Now the first rule is to form the plural like you have in English and speak from the anglophone background now. Add S to the singular form. Example, un livre bleu become the leaf blue. What they did is that they changed this indefinite article un to become what they. You will understand that in the next thing we're going to be dealing with in this particular lesson. You have un tab bass, you have the tab bass. The same thing, they changed this un to become the tab took S, the bass took S. So the general rule is that you add S to the masculine, to the singular form of the noun, and then you have the plural form. That is the general rule. Now, beyond that general rule, there are times words in French ends in S, in X, or in Z. In that case, you cannot add anything to them to make them plural. All you do is that you change the article from singular to plural. Say, for example, you have this. You have un cas précis become des cas précis. Only the article undergoing changes. Un choix malheureux, des choix malheureux. Un gaz dangereux, des gaz dangereux. So you take note of this stuff like that. X, the ones that ends in Z, the one that ends in X. They don't add S to them to make them plural. Now, beyond the X and S, general S rule, we also have other ways of making nouns plural in French. And these are very, very vital for you to take note of as a student just beginning to learn French. Now, let's run through them as we go ahead. The first one is, at times, the words is what we'll call R and O, A-L or A-U. They will not, you change that A-L and A to become A-U-X. After changing the article to become plural. Example, un journal, you see AL here, become des journaux. AL become AS. You have un tableau become des tableaux. But you have exceptions. Please always note the exceptions. You have the festival, the carnival, the bal. So note those ones most of the time when you are working. It's very, very important you take note of them. Now, when words ends in AIL, you add S, des raies, des inventaires, des porteurs, des détails. AIL, you just add S to form their plural. But there are exceptions. For example, travail becomes travaux, vitrail becomes vitraux, aimé becomes aimeux. So you take note of all those exceptions. So I've seen two rules now. ALA become AUX with the exceptions that follows. But AIL take regular S to form their plural. Now, having said that, The next thing you might want to look at is the fact that apart from words that ends in AL and AU that become AUX and AIL that take S with the exceptions that goes with them, those two rules, there are other forms of forming plurals. Now, when words ends in EU, for example, words ends in EU, it becomes EUX. Example is un chevaux become des chevaux. Des chevaux. Un jour become des jours. See, it becomes EUS. But there are also exceptions, and I love these two. Very important. We have blow, that's for color. Plow, that's for tire, the tire of a vehicle. So note those exceptions. They are important, especially if you're preparing for exams, maybe a professional exam, theft, DAF, whatever. You will need this knowledge. Now, to the last thing I want to talk about for forming plurals, well, words that ends in OU. Like AU and EU afterward becomes OUX. Example, the bijou, we have the caillou, the shoe, you see it now, the genou, you have the zibou, juju, pou. So, but when you come to bisu, it's S it will take. So please note this. OU become OUX, except the exception of bisu, which we have seen so far from these categories. It's important to take note of them so that you can actually master them. Beyond that, like we saw for the previous key, they will call cas particulier. Now, for this cas particulier, for this particular one, there is a total change between the masculine and the feminine. It might not even to form the plural from the singular. Example is the word I. Annoy become desio. Ancien become desio. Madame becomes mesdames. Monsieur become monsieur. Mademoiselle become mesdemoiselles. So for these ones, you also have to master them. That is how they are in French. So we have looked at them now. So making the third thing we have considered in this our interaction in this particular video. So please, you want to look at them. It's important to take note of them so that at the long run, you can actually master them. So we have seen and established that nouns in French are either masculine or feminine. We have seen how to transform masculine to feminine nouns. We have also seen what we call the signposts. What help you to identify that this is a masculine noun or this is a feminine noun. We now went forward to look at how to change nouns from singular to plural. Those are all you need as a beginner. Now, in the course of us dealing with these nouns, we are constantly using what we call a determinant, and we'll call that articles in French. Now, when you say article en français, there are basically three types. So we run through them within the shortest time possible. You're already used to the nouns, so it should be fairly easy. Now, let's look at these articles. You are going to discover for the very first one, we are looking at it's called article défini. Definite article. Now, as you look at this, you have là-dessus, à faire, attune to. We have la, you have une. They are both feminine, but la is a definite article. Une is indefinite. We say definite because we are precise, we are specific. We say indefinite when we are not specific. We have for the plural les uns. We have des for the plural. Now look at this table. This is the indefinite article here. We have un for masculine, une for feminine, des for their plural. So what that is, un garçon or une fille become des enfants in plural. We have lo, la, and les. Very important. Definite, indefinite, no definite, masculine, singular, and plural. Now, the indefinite article, generally in French, is used to designate a category of persons or things. Now, if I say une tour moderne, that is a modern tower, or un boulanger, a baker, I just made a designation. Now, when you have un and une, they are also used to express what we call quantity also. J'ai un chien, I have a dog. I have a dog. So, but when you come to the definite article, They are used to designate not a category or like the indefinite article of things, but a particular person or a thing. We have la tour Eiffel. Now look at the difference. When you say you tour modern, it could be any tower. If I say la tour Eiffel, that is, I'm talking about the Eiffel Tower, a particular one, the one in Paris. Now, when we say un boulanger here for indefinite, it could be any baker. But if I say le boulanger de ma rue, meaning the baker in my street, I am specific. I am very, very much specific. So that is the difference between the definite and the indefinite article when I'm using that with nouns in French. But beyond that usage, there are other usage as well. We can use that, the definite article for general reality, to express reality. For example, liberty, freedom, la liberté, le bonheur, l'amour, those are realities. So they can be used that way. So we can use the determinate article in those orders. So this is very important. Now, here comes an interesting part. Now, for what we have seen so about the articles, we have seen low, largely for the definite. What we call article elide. Now, look at this part. This is where students have issues with. Now, when a noun begins with a vowel in French, and you are using the definite article, the E in the low and the la A in the la, we have to give way. What we call article contracté, article elide, we call it l'élision. The low and la before a vowel or a mute H will be removed. The E will be removed. So instead of you to have what called la école, as you have it here, it becomes l'école. So if you have what called lo on, become what? Long. So because of this vowel and silent H you find in front of in that vowel, in that particular noun, those E's have to give way. So that is the key thing to note as far as those articles are concerned. Now, as we wrap up the whole stuff about articles and nouns, which if you have watched the videos at this point in time, please kindly do well to subscribe to the channel and recommend it to your friends that want to learn French from the English perspective, from the basics. More videos are coming. This is the new series we are starting, and we're taking the whole of grammar progressive, and trust me, you're going to have fun and learn at the same time. Now, the last thing we need to look at here is called article contracté. When you say article contracté in French, that is, you're talking about the partitive article in French. So let's look at that very briefly now as we wrap up this video. What is article contracté? What is it all about? Article contracté, the last thing in articles and nouns as we deal with it. So let's delve into it. I will also be sharing the screen once again so that you can see the screen and follow properly. I believe it's more interesting that way. So you have article contracté here. Article contracté. Now from the name or the origin that there is a contraction. We have je vais au cinéma. I'm going to the cinema avec la fille des voisins. Moi, je pars au sport d'hiver avec la femme du boulanger. Du boulanger. Au sport. Au cinéma. Take note. For you to have this kind of construction, to the, of the, that's what I'm trying to say here. You need two things. You have the definite article plus do and la. What will it give you? Look at it. When you have do plus lo becomes due. C'est la voiture du directeur. Is the car of the director. C'est le vélo du professeur. These two sentences. C'est le vélo du professeur. Is the bicycle of the professor. What happened here is that for these two due you have here, it's supposed to be do plus lo. But we now contract them together and that becomes du. Now that's of the. Now come to the next one. O is a plus lo. A plus lo. Preposition a and lo. Il est au bureau. Is at the office. Il va au lycée. Is going to school or to the college. Now you find out that this O here, AU, is made up of a preposition and lo. When you put them together, you have O. Now, for the plural, when you have do plus plural of the noun, you now have they, like the, which is very close to the indefinite article plural, but it's not the same thing. But this one is do plus les. Example, c'est le chien des voisins. Is the dog of the neighbors. Ce sont les skis des enfants. So that is what you have there. The same thing for O, AUX. A plus les. Ils sont au sport d'hiver. They are the winter sport at the plural. Ils vont au sport d'hiver. They are going to the winter sport. So that is what you should note. You see, this applies for plural. This contraction is for plural and for the masculine form. Now, what about if the noun is feminine and you want to use the partitive article? Will that going to be contraction? Let's see it very briefly. Now, you find that here you have Allah, A, L apostrophe, dollar, you have do, L apostrophe. You already know what L apostrophe I comes by because the next word we use the vowel, the E gives way. So this is a feminine word, la gare. Tu vas à la gare, because it's la gare, you maintain the A, no contraction. À l'aéroport, you maintain the A because aéroport is also feminine. So you have L apostrophe because aéroport begins with A. So that is how you descend it for do. Tu pars de la gare ou de l'aéroport. So these are how you use articles in French, and this is what we call the partitive articles in French. So we call the partitive article in French. So other examples, you can see them here, do ou are. We have le vélo du professeur, la couleur de la mer. We have je suis à côté du métro, près de la pause. So thus far, we have seen quite a lot of important aspects of this study, and it's very important we take note of them because we are going to be needing them as we go along. So we have looked at least a minimum of 6 different things in this video. Number one, we established the fact that nouns in French are masculine or feminine. We also saw how to transform masculine nouns to become what? Feminine nouns. We went forward to look at the signposts in identifying what is possibly a masculine noun or a feminine noun. And then from there, we came to the plurals of nouns. Generally, you add S, and then for X, Z, and S, you don't add anything to them. You only change the article to the plural form. We're now going to see how to change AL and AU to become AUX, whereas AIL remain the way they are. You add S to it. Then you go forward, look at EU becoming EUX, whereas there is in OU becoming OUX. We also saw the exceptions. We came to the articles. We saw that there are 3 types of articles in French. Definite, the indefinite article. Definite, lo, la, le. Then you have L apostrophe if the word begins with a vowel or a silent H. Then we have the an, un, de for indefinite article. When we came to the contractive part, we have a plus lo becoming o, a plus le becoming what? O, A-U-X. Do plus le becoming do, do plus le becoming what? De. Whereas for the feminine is ala, dola, they remain like that. So this is where we are going to stop this particular video. It's been a wonderful time. If you watched to the end, you have learned all you need to know about the basics of French language nouns operation, and master them, you will definitely have quite a lot to do and quite a lot of mastery to have. So thank you for watching to this far. I will see you in the next video, and we are going to be looking at adjectives in French. That video will be right next to this one. For now, bonjour, bonne journée, bonsoir, bonne nuit. Merci beaucoup d'être attentif. Au revoir.